not.
Yeah, there you go. Nobody's raising their hands right now.
Yeah. Yeah, so this is like basically a matchup of local heavyweights here, right? As they both just cut the local regional, which is exciting. Gio ran all the way to top 8, and I think Nate was knocked out in
top 32,
right?
Unfortunately, because he did, I think, had a game loss.
That's too bad.
Stat. Yeah, I was really excited about that because he had a Breloom on his team. I was so excited about the Breloom.
Yeah, it's a cool Pokemon. But yeah, so this is, I believe this is actually similar to what Nate was running as well. I know he was running Indeedee Armarouge. As far as the supporting cast, I honestly couldn't tell you, but you can kind of look at it and see that there's like a, kind of a couple pairings on the team with Mousehold and being good for setting up Trick Room, Fake Out Iron Hands, being good for setting up Trick Room, and of course Indeedee Armarouge, we've seen it already today, is kind of, it kind of precedes itself. And then also that Choice Scarf on Annihilate is cool because it can just Final Gambit Trick Room, and you can sack into whatever, kind of like Trick Room Pokemon you want. And finally, Roaring Moon. We haven't gotten to see that, but that's kind of one of the first, like a pretty popular Pokemon as we shift over to Series 2. There's a lot that it can do. It runs like a whole bunch of different Terra types. If it's like flying with acrobatics, sometimes they're just like dark. Some of them are steel with Iron Head, but there's kind of like a lot of stuff that it can do. It can Dragon Dance, it can set Tailwind. I believe it has, just like there's like a lot that it can do.
I like that it has Throat Chop as a move. I'm looking at Nate's team here now.
It has Jaw Lock too, and also Crunch, so it's just kind of like a matter of which dark type move.
Yeah, like how do you want to go with it?
Yeah.
I mean, I genuinely think it's actually such a cool design, and I love the naming of it.
Yeah, it's a cool Pokemon.
So there's something
reminiscent of Mega Salamence, which is cool. Yeah, we love that.
Mega Salamence.
Gio's team is going to look awfully familiar if you watched any of San Diego regionals. He's running 5 of the same 6, I think, with a Great Tusk over, I believe it was Tauros that was in that slot. Yes. So he just kind of like jobbed out fighting types. And Great Tusk brings more offense at the expense of Intimidate and Utility. So it's just kind of like either way you want to play it. But this is going to be a familiar looking lead for anyone that watched Gio play last weekend as well.
That is a giant Roaring Moon. Holy crackers. That booster energy, though, we're going to activate that photosynthesis.
I cannot see the mouse.
You cannot see the mouse. It is protecting it with its wings. That's Gothitelle Dragonite going to lock in a bunch of Pokemon here. Actually, all the Pokemon on Nate's side. That's fine because you got your booster energy here from that. And like you said, acrobatics with that is fantastic. Mousehold, most people's favorite mouse now. I am scarred forever by it, but still a great. I think it's adorable. It's great. It's got great utility here. I'm gonna have to actually I guess be careful now because now you're kind of locked in with this Gothitelle, which is going to be really annoying if you're trying to switch out stuff later.
Yeah, but you're locked in as a dark type, so it's far better than it could be, all things considered. And I think this is a pretty good position to start setting up if Nate wants to go for like a Dragon Dance, and we're looking at open team sheets, so we can tell you he does have Dragon Dance, and as Dragonite switches out too, that means there's basically going to be like very little offensive pressure for this turn onto the Dragonite, or onto the Roaring Moon.
Oh, they both? Oh my gosh.
So it can pretty much just like pretty freely go for a nice little Dragon Dance here if it wants to.
Actually going for a Protect instead, as Dragonite was switched out for the Great Tusk, also activating its own booster energy here, as actually double Protect here from Nate's side
fake out, yeah.
Is going to make sure no attacking here. A Fake Out from Gothitelle is going to go into what is that Roaring Moon spot. So again, both booster energies now consumed between both of these past Paradox Pokemon, both Great Tusk and the Roaring Moon. So I mean, Dragonite is safe, and now this Great Tusk is in here.
Yeah, I think it was smart by Gio to get some offense onto the field. Well, not that he didn't already with Dragonite, but I think this is a better position for Great Tusk than it was Dragonite. He can threaten super effective damage onto both of these Pokemon, although obviously Terra types are going to throw a little bit of a wrench into that plan because we see it is a Ghost type Mousehold, which is cool for like blocking Fake Out and stuff like that. And then Roaring Moon is flying, so that would really do kind of a number if Gio's trying to click a fighting type move here. But it's, I guess, a better position than turn 1, although I don't necessarily feel like Nate needed to play that passive into a Fake Out. I think he could have gotten a lot more done that turn.
Alright, and Gothitelle going to leave, taking with it, what was that Fake Out before?
And Gio's going to Earthquake then.
Yeah, as Dragonite here going to come into play. I did see that Mousehold did click Encore, so, kind of like one of the things you really watch out for, as now that Roaring Moon is going to be terastallizing on this turn, is going to get that flying type of boost. We know that has acrobatics already consumed its item here, and Geo actually going for his own terastallize is going to be that Great Tusk, is going to be a steel terra typing here, so a little bit scary offensively still. Like both of these have had their attacks boosted thanks to that booster energy and that photosynthesis, so a lot of like heavyweights here is actually going for Dragon Dance or that Roaring Moon, gonna boost up that attack even more. So if you weren't scared of it before, you absolutely should be terrified of it now, as Rock Slide here is going to miss the mouse hole, but catches the Roaring Moon, gonna deal a lot of damage here. Encore now from that mouse hole, going to fail because Geo did switch in that Dragonite spot, so no viable target.
Yeah, really smart Rock Slide from Geo there. I think it's a really hard play to make, is that when you see kind of the position for Nate here, that you'd be more inclined to click like a fighting type move, or potentially even like Headlong Rush. I think you might feel that like going for one of the stabs into either slot is making a little bit more sense there, but he actually just goes ahead and catches the Terra type immediately and takes a lot of momentum as a result, because now the position that this Roaring Moon is in, you've already committed so many resources to it that you don't want to just like kind of let it be knocked out, but you're also not, I don't think, taking a knockout onto either of the Pokemon on the other side of the field. So it's a little tricky, but it's just going to be a passive turn here from Nate, where I think he's just going to kind of see what Dragonite wants to lock into and then pivot around that accordingly.
Yeah, so another double protect here from Nate's side, as Iron Tusk goes for another Rock Slide, but again, because of the double protect, not going to hit any Pokemon here. Dragonite going to show that it is locking itself into Dragon Claw here. That choice banded Dragon Claw is also kind of scary with the same type of attack bonus for Dragonite. So really a lot of like just heavy hitters on Geo's side. I really do like Mashal as a support Pokemon though, but it just feels like it's not being able to do much in this moment, where it feels like Nate's really having to just kind of figure out moves and like react, instead of being like active, like proactive, I guess, in this.
Yeah, there's not a whole lot that it's, I mean, and it's just kind of the nature of the way that this one is built, is that there are some mouse holds that like to be like Technician and use Pop Bomb and do 1,000,000 damage so that they can kind of take advantage of turns like this, where, you know, you're not just Friend Guard with no attacks. And this is kind of like maybe the best thing it can do here is go for a Follow Me, so it's going to end up getting a Dragon Claw. But you can go for the Throat Chop, and it's not really going to do all that much damage because all of these Donphan Pokemon, related Pokemon, have pretty high defense stats. It's one of the things that even Donphan itself is known for, and this is kind of just like Nate having to basically cut bait and try and get as much done as he can into a really strong offensive position from Geo.
And we finally get to see the mouse hold in time for it to get knocked out too by that Dragon Claw. So the Rock Slide picking up the knockout on Roaring Moon, the Dragon Claw finishing off the mouse hold. So, but you know, another like great pair I think in the back for Nate. Kind of see that Armarouge in but still, I think it's just kind of rough when there's like a lot of just firepower coming out from the opposite side.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of firepower coming out, and there's also like, I don't think a whole lot that the Indeedee Armarouge in the back can really do, because the pairing is going to have to take 2 attacks in some capacity before they get to move, and like Headlong Rush is going to knock out either of these Pokemon regardless. So this could basically just be one of those situations where it's going to be like Headlong Rush push Dragon Tail or Dragon Claw, and then just kind of like clean up whatever is in the back. But this is a pretty tough position, because you could maybe get Trick Room up here, but it's going to be like a at what cost type of situation, and I'm not really sure there's a lot of counterplay to what Geo's got going on.
Yeah, and so we see kind of Nate like trying to figure out what he's gonna do with that Armarouge. I'm going back and forth between like that Indeedee like slot choice. I mean, just Dragonite Great Tusk, especially after you're able to like get rid of, I guess, the heaviest hitter on like Nate's side, which is like, you know, that Roaring Moon, and taking with it again that Terra typing. Armarouge is gonna go for that Protect on this turn. However, I'm gonna make sure it doesn't at least get hit and have one leg on the turn, as Headlong Rush from
it takes
that Great Tusk is going to do a lot of damage to that Indeedee, not enough to knock it out, as Dragon Claw actually just a double down into that Indeedee, so actually just fully ignoring the Armarouge. I guess, you know, if you can at least just stop the Indeedee from Follow Me shenanigans, and you can just focus on the Armarouge. And now that it's gone for that Protect, a little bit of trouble for the Armarouge, not going to be able to even move first, as Headlong Rush now from that Great Tusk is going to pick up the knockout and give game 1 to Geo.
Yeah, I think kind of what Nate was trying to do there was just to like make a really hard read and make a last kind of ditch effort at trying to steal the game away. So I think he was going with Trick Room with Indeedee and then Protect, basically trying to catch the double target into Armor Rouge. But Gio is up to the task and just takes the knockout onto Indeedee instead, and that basically ends the game. But Gio did a really nice job of pivoting around Roaring Moon early in the game, and then having Rock Slide on Great Tusk obviously did a lot of damage with the Terror type. But you're kind of in a situation where when you do that, and just go kind of like for the Rock Slide, predicting the Terror type, that if you don't catch it, you're really not doing that much damage on that turn and giving a lot of space to the Roaring Moon. And it's one of those Pokemon that can really just kind of like take over a game if you give it 1 or 2 free turns. So you have to be really careful about that. But once he had taken momentum, Gio just didn't give it back.
Yeah, and I think it's just rough because it's like, this is one of those things where like trying to figure out when Terra typings are going to happen is like so really paramount to a lot of the Pokemon in this game, right? Like if you can change like the typing or give like a little bit extra boost to some of the moves that you have, figuring out the optimal time to do so, I think is just, for me at least, that's probably because I don't play enough games on ladder. It's just like, it's really hard to decide like when is like the best time for this to happen, or like the mind games that go into it, right? And so it's always just been it's always really interesting to like kind of figure that out, because like you said before, like there's just sort of like a desire to maybe just like click into certain moves and be like, oh yeah, you can at least get this. But if they Terra type, then all of those plans sort of go out the window.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things about Terra type, and also because of that, thank goodness for open team sheets.
Yeah, honestly, I think I really think I love that concept so much. But I am very happy that we at least got to see both those Paradox Pokemon, because I really do enjoy seeing how things change as series shift over. And honestly, I think like when you're playing through the game, sometimes you look at Pokemon and you're like, oh, this doesn't seem like it'd be like a really great Pokemon to use, and all of a sudden it's like they're in a place where like they're able to be used. Still no Fluttermane. Somehow a lot of
we'll
Iron
see it
Hands
at some point. I'm sure we'll see it at some point. It's so good.
I will say a lot of Iron Hands, which was actually kind of like really fun to see, because I know Hariyama was on a lot of teams before in Series 1, so to see like that's its variant like also having that same sort of presence is kind of really nice. The mouse hold here was, I think, kind of just really like in a rough position the entire time. It wasn't really offering much.
Yeah, I think that's true. And then that's not to say that it wasn't the right bring, but I also think that there were kind of like some different ways that Nate could have played the early game, as I think going for the double protect into Gothitelle there was probably not like what I would have done. Is that there was probably more that you could have gotten done. But I guess that's like you could just go for a hard encore or something like that, and I think that would be kind of like a cool way to play it, instead of being so passive. But Mousehold is a cool Pokemon. I like the Friend Guard set a lot, and I think Encore is really smart if you're going to run that ability, which means that you don't have Pop Bomb. So there's at least some way that you could like put some amount of pressure onto the opposing team, so that it's not kind of in a situation where it's just sitting there on the field, kind of like it was in Game 1.
All right, so Gio's going for if it's not broke, don't fix it sort of thing. Yeah, same lead with Gothitelle Dragonite, but instead of Mousehold, we are going to see the Annihilate appear next to that Roaring Moon, which is going to consume that booster energy immediately out on the field. Annihilate, though, at least able to be switched out if it so needs to. You know, Shadow Tag not going to be working against it here, but a little bit more offensive pressure here from Nate.
Yeah, I think the big thing is that he can Final Gambit either slot, and Annihilate can't be picked out, obviously, because it's a Ghost type. So he kind of has the opportunity to pick like which slot he wants to try and Final Gambit, and either take a knockout onto the Gothitelle slot or the Dragonite slot, and then kind of Gio is also having to respond and decide what he wants to get knocked out here. But instead he's going to go into Meowscarada and actually just trade the Sash. So that's actually a pretty smart switch. I think Gio did well to kind of like catch that Final Gambit. And now Meowscarada is likely going to get the opportunity to at least go for one attack before it gets knocked out. And sometimes that's really all Meowscarada needs to do, is go for a knockoff, and you generate a lot of pressure by doing that. And then the fake out into the Roaring Moon was probably the only play that Gothitelle was making there. So we kind of reset again this time with Mousehold coming onto the field. It looks a lot like the turn 1 of Game 1, but this time it's Meowscarada on the field, and there is no... Nate's already down a Pokemon.
I think that the Mashhold is in a better spot than it was before here, so at least able to give a little bit of a boost here to that Roaring Moon right next to it. And like now that that Meowscarada is on the field, having already like procced that Focus Sash, right? Like now, like Geo kind of has to play around that, and knowing that there's a chance your Gothita could also get Encored is also something you have to keep in mind.
Yep. And I think Geo knows that, and he's going to withdraw. Yeah, so he's just going to go ahead and switch it out because he knows he doesn't want it to get Encored and bring right back into Dragonite, which is going to be, you know, a pretty important Pokemon, I think, in this matchup, because it's one of the ways that Geo can do damage to a boosted Roaring Moon, but this is actually has the makings of a really good turn for Nate here.
Yeah, so Nate actually able to protect the Mashhold here from a Flower Trick from that Meowscarada, as Dragon Dance from Roaring Moon is able to be able to go off without a hitch. Really, just kind of a great turn for Nate, as it's able to get that plus attack and speed. So Dragonite, you know, does come in here, but now you're staying on this Roaring Moon, which is in a lot better position than it was that turn earlier.
Yeah, and now Mousehold just gets to do Follow Me, which is kind of like what this supportive set with the Friend Guard really wants to be doing, like a lot of the time, especially when it's next to a setup sweeper like this. So now Nate just kind of has to like target correctly, and also again he sort of has to play around the possibility of like Terra-ing into like an unfavorable situation, but he's not going to go for it here, and I think that's probably correct. And then if Geo goes for like a Dragon Claw, you just like say nice shot, you got me.
All right, and so that Throat Chop does half damage even with the multi-scale here. Mashhold able to hold on past that Flower Trick, as the Dragon Claw though going to be the lock-in choice here. Mashhold is going to go down this turn, but that Roaring Moon able to do that much damage past with multi-scale still intact is absolutely terrifying to see, as Armarouge is now the Pokemon, the last Pokemon here on Nate's side. Still though, that Roaring Moon can carry this entire match by itself, honestly.
Yeah, I think that's kind of what Nate needs it to do at this point. Is he's going to be able to take a knockout into the Dragonite slot, like regardless of what switches in there, like if it's Gothitelle. And then we saw, what did you over? What was his other bring? Oh, Great Tusk. Yeah, I mean, even Great Tusk is going to take a lot of damage switching in there. So it's going to be kind of tricky to play around, but Geo's going to try and go ahead. I just assume this is Great Tusk that he's going to... Oh, it's Goth. Okay, so if this is Throat Chop, Goth goes away. And then this is kind of like the best position. That,
Ooh,
he switched attacks. Nice. I didn't even notice. So he thought it was going to be Great Tusk coming in there.
So Gothitelle is going to consume the Citrus Berry on that switch in, thanks to taking that Acrobatics pretty well, as Flower Trick from Meowscarada is going to just... It's going to get it down to a little half that critical hit guaranteed every single time here, as Armarouge for that Armor Cannon is going to be able to easily pick up that knockout on Meowscarada. A whole whopping 1 HP left down on that thing.
Got him.
But I mean, you know, you're kind of also now in a spot, if you do, where you don't have to worry about terrain. You can reset what your Dragonite is locked into. You have not used your Terra typing yet. There's a lot going on here. It doesn't matter how fast your opponent can be if you've got the priority.
Yeah, and I think that this is probably extreme speed range. Yeah, it's definitely extreme speed range. Yeah. So Roaring Moon definitely in extreme speed range. So this is kind of like a position where you have to play around both Fake Out and the attack that you know is coming. So Armarouge is going to have to probably take a knockout onto Dragonite this turn in order for Nate to win the game, and then if he is that's what has to happen. That's what has to happen, right? Is that he has to take a knockout onto Dragonite here. It's going to end up taking probably too many KOs. And then Roaring Moon like could go for Protect here, but I don't think you necessarily have to.
I think he clicked into it.
And I think Geo, like, his best play might just be like a Terra Normal E-Speed into the Armarouge.
This is actually, like, I still feel like it's like really tough, because you have to figure out, like, what is Nate gonna do here, and what is Geo gonna, like, try to identify here. As Roaring Moon goes for the Protect here, Gothitelle's Fake Out gonna go into that Armarouge. It's gonna get a little bit of chip damage here. The Weak Armor, they're gonna activate Defense going down as that speed goes up by 2. Dragonite locking into extreme speed, goes into that Roaring Moon spot. So unfortunately, you know, not gonna be able to pick up any knockouts here. However, Armarouge is going to be flinched this turn, so now you know Roaring Moon has burned the Protect. This Dragonite is literally just free game right now, unless you go for like a Heal Pulse or something like that. Ooh, trying to go for a double Protect here.
Yeah, I think it's the only out, especially because Great Tusk is still in the back. I actually totally forgot that Geo still had another Pokemon here, so this is probably like this is basically already over. Is that you just need to find the position to sack into Great Tusk, and then we know that Armarouge is slower than it. We saw it in game 1, and even if you take the knockout here, It does not matter if it's Great Tusk in the back.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, if you're looking at the Gothitelle, the Gothitelle can't do. I mean, you could put you to sleep if it hits those hypnosis.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, but
I
you know.
mean, there's no actual win con, right?
Yeah. So honestly, like, yeah, Dragonite was like kind of big threat here, and if that second, oh, sorry,
Hey, hit it anyway.
Hit the hypnosis anyway. That's you like to see it. I mean, I guess if you're doing, because like hypnosis, if it's not, if your heart rate does not speed up when you're clicking hypnosis, you're not playing this game correctly.
Right.
Honestly, but yeah, so that final Pokemon being revealed to be Great Tusk, you know, just kind of keeping it there, and honestly, you don't really need the booster energy and photosynthesis to take down this Armarouge. It's gonna have to stay asleep for like a turn, and honestly, like, at this point, the writing's sort of on the wall. Gothitelle just gonna try to guarantee like the overkill here, going for the helping hand. Great Tusk. I don't think Great Tusk needs the help, but
no,
it's always nice,
it definitely doesn't. I guess it kind of gets around a potential Terra, is like you make sure you're doing enough damage regardless. But yeah, that is going to end up being a pretty clean 2-0 victory for Geo there, who's basically, well, obviously you know that he has a pretty good amount of experience and mastery playing the team, and then just subbing out a Pokemon that does even more damage just kind of like enhances the parts of the team that, you know, worked well for him, which is like, okay, I'm gonna put Gothitelle onto the field next to something that does a lot of damage, and you have to figure out how to get around that.
Yeah, that's kind of interesting, because it's just like, you know, if you're Great Tusk and you're Tauros looking at each other, Tauros is just like, who are you? It's like, I'm you but better right now in
well,
this instance.
in some settings, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, in this instance for this team, right, is definitely one of those, like, it's a little bit better for him, and so I do appreciate how Nate played that second game, right? Like, you sort of realize, like, oh, if he leads Gothitelle Dragonite, it feels like Maushold is too passive against that Roaring Moon. So bringing in the Annihilate, I think, was a fantastic idea. It just so happened that, like, when you know there's a Final Gambit coming your way, and you have a Pokemon that can survive a Final Gambit, might as well.
Yeah, and